Welcome back, everybody, to the Knicks Rewind podcast. I'm Johnny Curvin.
Owen Smith.
And it's been a couple weeks since we've done an episode, and we have some news today. We had an interesting Leon Rose interview with the GOAT, Mike Breen, where he talked, some coaching, some players. He talked to Wide Wes, who just joined. We made a move a few days ago where we released Trier and signed Theo Pinson. We're going to talk about that for a few minutes. Then we're going to talk about another recent signing, Jared Harper, and say goodbye to our boy Kadeem Allen. And then we're going to give a quick coaching update, and we're going to go through all 11 candidates, all 11 candidates according to this New York Post article that I have pulled up. And we're going to go through and talk about each one of them, pros and cons of them. And yeah. So let's start with the Leon Rose interview. This happened pretty recently, and we both watched it the other day. What were some of your initial thoughts about Leon Rose? Because he hasn't spoken to the media much, so it was just nice to hear from him.
What kind of stood out to me a lot was he's a very professional guy. He was very vague with a lot of what he was talking about, but I think that was good. A couple of specific moments, like when he was talking about young players, he kind of put RJ and Mitch in a stratosphere above. Like those were the first two guys he mentioned, and then kind of like added in Frank and Knox and Dennis later on. That was one thing that pointed out to me. I like him. I like the way he talks. He sounds like he knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. He sounds like he works hard. He clearly has like a history in basketball. Like he played in college. He played in high school.
It's hard to imagine that guy playing in college.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that guy being a basketball player.
Yeah.
In general, but still, and he's been around the game forever. And I think one thing that gets overlooked about agents, coming in is like they do very similar jobs as GMs in some way because they have to evaluate talent as well. So basically they say, do I want to sign this guy into my agency? Do I want to represent this guy? Like, will he make me money? They have to make those evaluations.
Right. And that's very similar to having a president job.
Yeah.
So, and he can use those skills from his, agency and everything.
And he's good with the numbers. He knows how to negotiate. Like,
right. He's a businessman. He's got a lot of history with that. I just want to say something real quick. Owen can't find his mic, so that's why he may sound not great, but hopefully he'll find it by next episode. But
I will.
So just to quote what he said about Mitch and RJ, he said 2 young core pieces, which is good to hear from your president, that we have 2 young great pieces that are obviously a part of our future. He said that Kevin Knox is just starting to scratch the surface. And then, I wish he praised my boy Frank a little more because he said, given the right circumstances, he can really prosper. And he said that. That's a good thing to say, but I think...
Is he wrong?
No, he's not wrong. I just, as a Frank guy, obviously, I want, him to be in the category of 2 young core pieces.
I think it's hard.
It's hard
Frank,
to put him there.
Just because I think Frank isn't the type of guy that's going to succeed in any role. Just throw him into the fire and his talent will show. I think Mitch is a guy, you put him in any situation in the NBA and he'll have the same numbers. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think that that's going to change at all. I mean, in some cases his numbers will grow, but his production is good enough now. Frank, his production isn't necessarily good enough yet. Sure, you put him in a great situation where he doesn't have to get a lot of burden on offense. He'll get a lot of wide open threes. And stuff like that, but that's a good evaluation, I think.
No, I mean it's accurate, but I want my president to get my favorite player like in that core piece. And then I want to talk to you about the Dennis Smith comment. He said he's a quote special talent. Do you believe him in when he says that Dennis Smith is a special talent? Because I think he's a special talent. I just don't think he's very good. which is obviously contradicting because I think he's a great athlete. He just doesn't really know basketball very well, like when you watch him.
No, I think Dennis has kind of got screwed a little bit in the NBA, but there is no denying his talent. There never has been. I don't know if he's ever going to put it all together, but he's a guy I think that it's not worth to trade right away.
You want to see what he can do under a new coach and a new president and a new roster before you completely give up on him.
I mean, he's arguably the best athlete or best, like, at least jumper in terms of like leaping ability that we've seen from the point guard position in a long
time. Yeah.
I mean, he's got like D Rose athleticism. It's that type of stuff. Like I watch every once in a while, I go on YouTube and watch like his high school highlights, and they're just absolutely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
He skies.
Yeah, no, he's a ridiculous jumper, and he's got the talent. He doesn't have the shooting talent, but he's got the athleticism and raw talent where you would hope that he's put it together by this point. But I don't think it's, we've done a lot of hating on Dennis Smith on this podcast, and honestly, rightfully so. He was probably the worst player in the league last year. Him and Knox, probably the worst players in the league. But he obviously is still young. Give him one more chance under a new coach. I mean, it'll probably be a new coach unless it's Mike Miller, but we'll get to that in a minute. And under a new president and hopefully under a new roster next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So he implied about the draft that it's top heavy. He said that after, the first, I don't know, he didn't specify, but I'm assuming he's like 10 picks. He said it's equal, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I got from him that it was dropping off from the way he didn't explicitly say that. But, what do you remember what he said about the draft much?
He kind of said basically after in my head, kind of after like pick 5, you're going to get it's mostly high quality role players is what you're going to find. There are a lot of guys though in the draft that I think are very boom or bust. Guys that like are either going to be really good or they're not going to be really good.
Do you have any names off the top of your head that?
Yeah, in terms of guys like that, I think like Cole Anthony is one that sticks out to me. Anthony Edwards, guys that are like very
Wiseman.
I think Edwards is safer, but I see the difference with that is I see a role for Wiseman where he's not a superstar. I don't necessarily see a role for Cole Anthony like that. Like he either is a high volume scorer,
or he's not that good.
Or he's just a super inefficient player who's little and kind of morphs into like a Brandon Jennings type who's out of the league in 8-9 years because there's not a lot of role for those players.
Right.
Like he doesn't fit the mold of like a quality starting point guard off the bench.
So he's obviously a risk, and you and I both know that we don't want him on the Knicks.
Yeah.
But that's a good
sentiment.
Example.
I'd agree with that sentiment where he's like, there are a lot of guys that have like some really good skills and some really bad skills.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some guys that can shoot really well and, get to the basket really well, defend really well. Guys like Okoro, who is a really good defender and will do a lot well, but cannot shoot to save his life and can't really like put the ball on the floor yet.
Right.
There are a lot of guys like that in this draft class.
Mike Breen asked Leon Rose a lot about coaching, and he had high praise for Mike Miller. He said under the circumstances he did a great job, which you and I think we both agree that he did a good job. We're going to interview like 9 to 11 guys, which is a lot of guys, and we're going to get into those in a bit. But he said that, in terms of team identity and style of play, that's going to be up to the coach. So we're going to use coach's strengths, which makes sense. But it's not going to be Leon Rose as much involved in team play and team identity aside from, picking players and doing transactions and trades, free agency, the draft. So a lot of next year's success, if we have any, I think is going to rely on the coach. So I think I've been kind of underappreciating this whole coaching search a bit. Like it's kind of gotten a little repetitive for me, but I haven't really realized until after that interview how important it is because, the style of play and everything is going to come down to whoever it is. So
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I also agree with, I like the way that he's approaching that. And I think it's the right way to approach it is build my team around what my coach wants so he can coach to the best of his ability.
Right.
And maximize the group.
Right. Build a roster around your coach's strengths.
hmm and how your coach wants to play.
Mm-hmm.
So if your coach is like a Tibbs guy, get a lot of bruisers, get a lot of guys who are going to play defense, and maybe you'll eke out like 104 points a game, but the other team is going to score 102.
Right.
And like get those types of guys. But if it's an Atkinson, get a lot of shooters, get a lot of shooters,
Space
get
the
a lot
floor,
of guys who move the ball, space
right.
the floor. And I think he has the right mentality with that, because coaches often come in and want to play a certain way. Because the Knicks have had like 4 coaches in a row who have been like, we're playing fast, we're shooting. And then like Hornacek, that was a big goal of his. And then he comes in with a bunch of guys who like to slow it down, and at the end of the shot clock, Mellows and Roses and all those types of guys who don't necessarily play fast.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends a lot on personnel if the coach actually wants to implement the system that they're good at.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that's pretty much us. And then let's talk about World Wide Wes, William Wesley, in a minute, which is a pretty exciting hire for Leon Rose and one of his bigger moves so far. So let's talk about him, because this is the last thing that we'll touch on in the Leon Rose interview. I think it's great. He's gotten a lot of praise, and the Knicks have actually gotten a lot of praise from players and other coaches and other executives around the league for making this move. If you don't know, which I'm sure you do know, he has a ton of relationships around the league. He's a well-respected guy, and Leon Rose said that he's going to be a mentor, and he wanted to be part of an organization, and he was ready to move on, from the agency business. And they've known each other for a long time, so I think it could be a really exciting relationship to follow for this team in the long run. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, they grew up together.
Right. They've known each other forever, over 40 years.
Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I think it's important to have a guy like Wes. The things I've read about him have been really popular. Seems like he's great at giving advice, because he knows everybody and he knows what people think about everybody, which is very important. I saw an interview with Larry Brown talking about World Wide Wes, and he kind of was like, every time he recommended an assistant coach to me, it was a success, a huge success. I loved everyone he recommended. And I see him taking on a very consulting role, mm-hmm. and kind of being not necessarily making huge decisions, but giving advice on decisions.
Right. I mean, he'll be more behind the scenes, I mean, he's a big profile guy, but he will be behind the scenes, hopefully making a call or two to a player from time to time that he's got a good relationship with,
Yeah. I think, and he's a culture guy. He's a guy that comes in to see what's wrong with the franchise and identify it, because this is a guy who's been around a lot of teams, been around a lot of players, know what they like in franchises, know what they don't like, and will identify those things and those people in the buildings that are maybe not benefiting the team in the way that they should be. He'll change those things, and he'll make his voice heard.
Right.
I saw an article. I mean, there are articles about him calling him the most well-connected man in basketball that no one.
And that's huge, obviously, for changing your team culture and identity.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Very influential guy. Cool. I'm very happy. The only one negative review I saw of him when we hired him was from Stephon Marbury.
Right. He said what did he say exactly? But I saw that.
He was just, I don't know. He just kind of bashed him. But everyone else, Kendrick Perkins,
a big Knicks hater,
but also go-to source when you're talking about basketball stuff.
Yeah, classic.
This is
why has he
become
become the voice of the NBA? What did he do?
No idea.
How did that happen?
No idea. But other than Perk, a lot of other well-respected guys really praised the hire. I don't have a list off the top of my head, but I saw a lot of tweets from people that were Jamal Crawford, I remember, was this is awesome. Stuff like that, mm-hmm. Respected players saying things about West that were very positive.
Right. All right, let's move on to Trier and Theo Pinson. This was a few days ago. We got the notification that we have released Alonzo Trier, and we picked up Theo Pinson, who was just released
mm-hmm.
by the Brooklyn Nets. I've seen various different things. A lot of people don't like the move. A lot of people don't mind the move, and a lot of people like the move. I mean, it's very mixed. I'm in the category of I don't mind it. I'm not, mm-hmm. I liked Trier. I thought he was a good guy. I thought he won us some games, and I thought he went out and I think he's a great offensive talent. I don't think he was right for the team that we were building, and I don't think he's, a great NBA player, honestly. Like, he's got a good talent. He doesn't play defense, though, and he's not a great passer, and he, ISO. Like, if you see that nickname, like, you immediately can tell he's not the number one guy that I would want to play with.
No, me neither. I went back and forth on Trier. He does a lot of things that a lot of guys in the NBA can't do.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that type of scoring talent. I just don't know if he's ever going to be right for a system, because he kind of just plays his own way, plays his own system. He's always kind of been like that. And his advanced stats, like, even if on the surface he had a good game, like, he had a good rookie season, he was pretty efficient, his advanced stats, even on offense, weren't very good. One thing I noticed, on defense, they definitely weren't very good. So he's just not a player that necessarily contributes a lot to the team's overall. Because if he doesn't have the ball, he doesn't do much.
Right.
He needs the ball in his hands, and even when the ball's in his hands, he's going to, like, body people. And, like, I remember he always loves to, like, throw an elbow, and, like, really just no one stands in his way from scoring,
Mm-hmm.
So.
And he said something, I think it was maybe in the middle of the season, that he doesn't like the nickname ISO because he wants to be more than that. But we never, granted, he didn't have a ton of opportunities under Mike Miller because he didn't play a whole lot. We didn't see a whole lot of change. And, I respect to him. I thought he was fun to watch at times, and he had some big games for us. But it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. And shout out to at JazzAP on Twitter. I saw this tweet that Pinson has a team option that doesn't need to be exercised until October. He's a trade chip, a Brock Aller contract. Doubt he starts next year on the roster. He's a more useful piece than Trier. And Trier also doesn't have an insignificant contract. I think it's over $3.5 million, if I'm not wrong.
I think 3.5, 4 million, yeah.
So it's a trade piece, and I think Theo Pinson right now is more valuable because of the contract.
Trier would have been a free agent too. So, and I think we were going to decline his option anyway.
Right. So
he didn't have a lot of fans in the building. I'm not too scared about letting him go.
Yeah, I'm not worried that he's going to go to another team and really show out. Like, he's the type of guy that maybe if you put him in, he'll give you 20 one night, but he might do that a couple times this season. And other than that, he's not going to really contribute.
Yeah, he's a microwave guy, but also he looks so lost on defense every game this year.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have guys that I'd rather get minutes than him, like a Frank or an RJ even, like guys like that. And there are veterans that are going to get minutes over him. So I'm not going to miss this one too much. My
thoughts on Theo Pinson don't go that deep.
I've never liked his game very much,
mm-hmm. He was great in the G League. He spent most of his time in the G League over on the Long Island Nets.
Yeah.
And he was great there. I think he was like running for like G League MVP. No, he was like running for G League MVP.
He was like 15 points a game and like 6 assists and 6 rebounds.
And then when he was on the Nets, he was a role player. I think he's most known for the dancing video, the meme.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I doubt he plays a game in the Knicks uniform. And a lot of my Nets fans like him. I don't really know why. I think they just...
Yeah, a lot of my Nets fans like him. That was like my favorite thing about the hiring. It's just like
a big F
on
you.
My Nets fans friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were just like,
I felt good about that.
And they were kind of pissed, but obviously they weren't like shocked because it's not a huge deal for either of us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on.
I agree.
A few days before that move, we said goodbye to one of our guys, man. I was a fan of Kadeem Allen, and we'll get to Jared Harper in a sec, but I liked Kadeem Allen. I thought he was a good player.
I always thought he never got...
He didn't make many mistakes.
He should have.
He didn't make many mistakes, and he
shot the ball well, was a good defender, and I always thought he should have gotten a better chance.
I agree. I liked Kadeem's game. He is. I didn't love when I saw him get minutes over Frank. But he's a more valuable player to me than Dennis Smith Jr. right now.
I don't know if he ever got minutes over Frank.
He did many times. I think under Fizdale he did a lot.
Didn't.
Yeah, he did.
He was always like the fourth guy.
Not all
He
the
was
time.
always like the fourth guard.
Not all the time.
Whenever
He started
like,
a few
people got
games.
hurt. Yeah, when like our whole like Frank had his groin thing, Dennis was out, and Moutier was out last year.
Yeah,
and Kadeem just came in and balled out.
And he
put up,
balled
like,
out. So I
26.
think, but like, yes, I do think he deserves more of an opportunity.
Yeah,
But
and
you
he
know, so
scored
long.
20 points before.
What he did score 20 points before Frank, which whatever. Frank got a 20 and 10 game before the whole hiatus. So like, does it matter? No. And a quick note on Jared Harper. We won't stay on this too long. But I remember, I think it was probably 2 years ago, watching this man on Auburn in the NCAA tournament. And I remember this guy just being a dog. Like,
yeah,
this guy
him.
was,
I like him.
he's short, he's quick, he's athletic,
fast.
he's really fast. And he was just going into bodies at Auburn. I haven't watched him at all in the NBA. I'm not going to lie. I have not watched him at all.
No idea where he's been, and I had no idea he was even on the Suns.
I think, yeah, I knew he was in Phoenix, but I never watched him. Like, obviously, I'm really not watching Phoenix games, but I liked his game from the few games that I saw when he was at Auburn because he was a great piece for them. He's a reason. I think he was a big reason why they made it so far. I think he was on the team when they made it to like, what was it, the Elite Eight?
No, they made it to the Final Four. And
Final Four, right? But yeah, I think we'll give him a chance. I don't know if he's gonna contribute more than Kadeem ever did, but it's not like it's a huge move right now. We're just taking risks on guys, or not even risks. They're very low risks. We're just taking chances on guys, and I have no problems with that.
Yeah, me neither.
Do you want to end the show by doing 10, 15 minutes on coaching?
Yeah, let's talk about the coaching candidates.
All right, so I'm pulling up this New York Post article titled Breaking Down All 11 Candidates for a Knicks Head Coaching Job. We're not going to read it, obviously. We're just going to go through the names that they have because I think this is the most recent list that I've seen on the internet. So we'll go from top to bottom. I don't think it's in any specific order. That's not true. It's in alphabetical order. So the first one is Kenny Atkinson, my favorite out of all 11. But you go ahead.
Me
You
too.
start with Kenny.
This is my guy. And like, this would be such a win. Not even just because I really like him as a coach, just because I really want to just have a win over my net fan friends who all love Kenny.
Excuse me. Sorry, go ahead.
I would just, I'd have a field day.
Oh, me too, because they all loved Kenny Atkinson, and you know, obviously the whole Kyrie and KD was they're the reason he's gone because he did a fantastic job there, and he's a great development guy, and he may not be the best numbers guy or the best rotations guy, but he's the perfect guy for this roster right now, in my opinion.
I agree. I totally agree. I think you look up and down the line of players that he's developed and done well with, guys that literally, like guys that were picked beyond 15, and guys like LeVert and Allen and Dinwiddie might be the best of all. And same with like Joe Harris. Like just seeing that a guy can shoot and is like, I'm going to put him in positions to succeed. And he did that. He plays to players' strengths really, really well. And he did that with Dinwiddie, you know, put Dinwiddie in a lot of pick and rolls and he really succeeded.
Right.
And it's worth noting before Kyrie got hurt, he was having the best offensive season of his career.
Right.
So I, you know, Kenny, if we hired Kenny, that would be a home run in my opinion.
For sure. And he's a CAA guy, and he was a Knicks assistant for 4 years from 2008 to 2012.
Yeah. But also just if the way the Nets fans reacted, like my Net fan friends reacted when we when we signed Theo Pinson, the way they'd react when we signed Kenny Atkinson would be like my best day.
Yeah, it would be a fantastic day for both of us.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Mike Brown. And we interviewed him, I believe, last year or 2 years ago when we were looking for a coach, and we ended up getting Fizdale. But he was LeBron James's coach. He had a good record with him, but obviously he had LeBron James on the Cavs. This was pre-Heat era. And he led the Cavs to LeBron led the Cavs to the finals. But he's got a good coaching record, 305 and then 187. So that's a really good coaching record. And he was fired in 2010 after an early playoff exit, and it was also LeBron's last year in Cleveland. And he was hired by the Lakers head coach in 2011, and they made the playoffs, but they were really bad
Didn't
the
win
next 5
anything,
years.
yeah.
So it didn't. He hasn't proven that he can win without a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a good defensive guy, and he's not my favorite candidate here, but
No, he's definitely not my favorite candidate. I mean, he's won games, but I mean, I think you could have put anybody with LeBron, and LeBron in that era, that's probably the best LeBron has ever been, just in terms of like pure talent. Those last few years with the Cavs, he won 2 MVPs.
mm-hmm.
He was just an absolute, like, I can't find a word. He was just like an absolute freight train and just a dog. And no one, like, he was the most unstoppable man in basketball. And then same with the Lakers. The Lakers were a pretty talented team in the years that he was with them, and he only lasted like 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and got fired 5 games into the season when they had Dwight and Nash and Kobe.
Right. So that obviously didn't go well.
I'm not a fan, and then we can spend a little less time on this next one.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't know anything about him.
I just know nothing about this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to just
and
move
I don't
on?
see, like, I didn't see, yeah, I mean, we can move on. I didn't see a lot on this guy. People, like, really...
I haven't heard a lot of
praising him or
chitter chatter about
anything.
him. But,
No, I mean, I know he almost got hired on Fizdale's
I mean, a
staff.
quick note, he's been an assistant for Steve Clifford for, like, a while. That's kind of all you need to know.
Talk Chris Fleming.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Richmond.
Spiders.
Spiders. So I think I actually heard a lot of good things about this guy. When I did research, I know Bulls fans were super excited when he was named their top assistant this year. And it seems like he has a really strong offensive mind, and has like Nets connections and Spurs connections and Nuggets connect. Like, he's been on a lot of great young teams that have improved a lot. And it seems like he's a good offensive mind, played in Germany for a while. So yeah, I'd be happy if we hired him. I don't know if we're going to. I don't think we're going to, but yeah, sure, why not?
The next guy is Will Hardy, and I love my Greg Popovich successors. He's been an assistant for Pop since 2016, and he was with FIBA basketball for a bit last year or something. And whether it's Will Hardy or Becky Hammon, I trust Pop assistants. I think they do well most of the time, and I wanted to hire. I'm blanking on his name. Who's the Hornets coach? What's his name? What's his name?
Borrego.
James Borrego. And so I really wanted him. Obviously he had a tough year, but he was also the worst. He probably had the worst roster in the NBA.
They probably had the worst roster in the NBA, and they did pretty well.
And they overachieved.
This guy seems like a prodigy type guy.
Yeah, I mean,
like
he's 32 years old too. Like, I like bringing new blood in, and my dad talks about this all the time. He wants to bring in a new guy who is young, can relate to players, and he obviously seems like a smart guy considering he's been with Pop for a while.
Yeah, and it also seems like this guy is going to get, whenever Pop retires, is going to get very strong consideration to be the next head coach there.
For sure.
I know he went to Williams, which is a great school. So he seems like he's like kind of like a kid basketball genius. So I'd actually be really excited.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could do great things for us. But
he's here for a while.
Yeah, and he's a great basketball mind and obviously a smart guy. The next one, I might hate on a little bit.
I don't like
Jason Kidd.
I think another note about Hardy, I think he's the type of guy that's really going to wow in his interview.
Because he knows it, because he's definitely a very well-spoken guy.
He seems like he's very impressive, yeah. But I don't think we'll hire him.
Fair enough. Jason Kidd. I don't want him. And you know what? I've seen things that it could be a huge role in getting Giannis to come here in 2021 when he's a free agent.
How you hire coaches, man.
That you can't hire a coach, with the idea of, having a 2% chance of getting the best player or one of the best players in the world right now. Not how you do it.
Giannis is staying in Milwaukee. in all likelihood, like, do you really think our roster is going to be good enough that he wants to leave that to come here just because we have Jason Kidd?
I know.
No,
it doesn't make sense.
He's on the best team in the league. I mean, they're the best
And he has a
record in
better
the league
coach over there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
We don't have to spend a lot. I mean, and he kind of also has like that Mark Jackson tag of like the guy who coached the team the year before they got really good. Like, we're very mediocre, and then he came, or he left, and then they got really good.
Right. I mean, it's just a clear sign that, and he also he got fired with the Nets when he was over there, and he just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that I want to bring in, and I just don't think that he fits what we want to do. Yeah,
no. All right.
Our boy Mike, we've talked about Mike a lot on this podcast, so we'll skip over. We're not going to skip over him, but we'll skim over him.
Gloss over him, yeah.
I like Mike a lot. Mike.
He did a great job with the team this year.
He's not my number one option to come back, but he's probably my top 4.
Yeah, I mean, we were like 4-20 before he came on, and then finished 17-27. Still not incredible, but I mean, that's a better pace than what we were on, a much better pace. And he made a lot of changes, kind of took away. So like our defense got a lot better with him. Our offense kind of stayed bad. He's a really good defensive mind. I don't know if he's a good offensive mind.
He was 17-27, which honestly, like, is not that bad. I'm serious.
It's just it's just funny, like, hearing us talk about it.
I know.
Like, he was 17-27. Like, that's good.
I know. I mean, that's if we had him at the beginning of the year, we wouldn't have made the playoffs, but we could have made some noise, maybe.
Yeah.
So I like Miller. I think he's a safe pick, and
I would feel kind of like, I feel like my reaction though if we hired him would kind of be like, meh,
He's not.
Like, there are a lot of guys on this list that I think would be better than him.
He's not the shiniest guy, and but he's in my top 4. And if we hire him, I'll be happy with it. Jamal Mosley.
I kind of like this guy.
Talk to me.
I don't know. From what I've read about him, I know he works really closely with Luka. I know Carlisle, who is arguably the best coach in the NBA, really, really likes him and relies on him a lot. I know he's very defensive minded, or not defensive minded, analytically minded, which is impressive. Works hard as player development, which is important for us. As soon as I see the word player development with these coaches, my eyes light up.
Right. Yeah. So he's known for his player development, and and it says here that he's a defensive mind and a strong communicator. And this is what Leon Rose was talking about in the interview. Like, he wants to have a relationship with the coach where they're always communicating, so they know what moves to go after and what style of play and what the team identity is going to be, because they all relate to each other.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting name.
Jamal with a HL at the end. But anyway, Tom Thibodeau.
I don't know. He's old. He's 62. He's just I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a May hiring, in my opinion. He's a proven guy. He's a great defensive mind. He might, tire out RJ and Mitch if he plays them 40 minutes a night. But he is a proven guy. He's a great defensive mind. He didn't have success with the Timberwolves, but he had success with the Bulls. Granted, he did have an MVP and Joakim Noah and a good roster. But yeah, I mean, he was in my top 3 or 4 for a while, but I think he's definitely slipped now.
I agree. I'd say he slipped, but also, like, in this little description and reportedly was fired in 2019 from the Timberwolves for being too hard on young players. It's just, we're a team of young guys, and we need somebody who's going to develop our guys and, make them good. You don't sustain winning by just, like, getting the Randalls and the whatever Portises of the world and putting them on 1 to 2 year deals and hoping something works 1 year and we'll be a 6 seeder. So yeah, this is not my favorite.
Yeah.
All right. I'm worried he's going to get the job.
I'm worried too, but if he gets it, so be it. Maybe he can prove that he can work with a young, rebuilding team. Ime Udoka. Is that as I think I said?
Udoka.
Another pop guy. and which is obviously, makes me happy. What do you think? I don't know a whole lot because I haven't really researched him enough, but I'll get on that. But he's known for his player development, and he's a player's coach. He can form strong relationships, and he played 8 games for the Knicks in 2006.
Yeah. Pop obviously is the first thing that kind of comes to mind. I heard that he left San Antonio because he feared that he wasn't going to be the guy that was next in line for that job. I don't know how he was liked in Philadelphia. Other than that, seems like an impressive guy. You be around Pop, that's a good thing. Pop assistants do well. But it sounds like I'd honestly like to hire Hardy before I hired him. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, me too. I like Hardy's resume more, and I like, the mind that he has. But
still Spurs,
But Spurs are Spurs, and, if we hire him, I have to look a little more into him to really come to a conclusion whether, I really like him or not.
It's hard to look into assistants, because
you don't really know what they've actually done,
But this is also why you get guys like Wide Wes, because he's so well connected. So he probably
knows these things.
Is able to talk to guys and okay, what do you think of Udoka? How do you think he's been? What do you think of him as a coach? He can talk to, other staffers, players, management members. It's just good to get guys who have connections like this because they know how people feel about this guy, or other guys and all the people on this list. So he's going to play a big role.
The last guy on this list is the GOAT of all coaches, Mike Woodson. Man. Bring him back. Bring back Woody 2020. I like Woodson. I thought he was great with the Knicks tape era. I really do, and I think he built good relationships. And as Raymond Felton said on the New York Knicks show or Knicks Fan TV the other day in their interview, which was great. He said that he knew exactly how to build relationships with players, but also, know that he was in charge and he was doing the rotations and he was calling the plays, which is important because you need to know who's in charge. And that's something that Leon Rose said was a big point of decision in hiring a coach, that the players need to know that the coach is in charge. And I think Woodson can do that. And his coaching resume isn't, off the charts. He coached the best Knicks team of the decade. So, everyone knows Mike Woodson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he did well. He did well with the Knicks. He's kind of gotten blackballed by the league a little bit. Hasn't been gotten really much consideration for a head coaching job in a while. But I wouldn't hate this. I kind of want a fresh face in some capacity. But it wouldn't be the worst one. In my opinion.
I'm not jumping out of my seat for Woodson, but there's obviously a part of me that, brings back some good memories when seeing his name.
I know.
Cool. Do you have anything else you want to say about these coaches or the Leon Rose or Pinson or Harper?
Not really. I think it's a good list of candidates. No Mark Jackson.
Which is great. Which is, good to see because we're both obviously not Mark Jackson guys.
Leaving no stone unturned, yeah.
All right, well, thanks, guys, for listening. We'll be back when we can, when there's more updates. And follow us on Twitter @Knicks Rewind Pod. And we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
All right.